Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to Life on the Wrist. Hope you guys are doing well today. We're going to be jumping into this really beautiful IWC. This is an incredible piece with incredible history. I find when you're able to research a piece and piece together so many different details about a watch that might go missed by many collectors, I think that's what makes a watch so interesting to me. So I'm going to be talking about the history of this piece, history of the movement, case, brand, and sort of give you an idea of where this sort of falls in line with the time period, because that is a very significant part of this specific watch. So as always, we'll have an article where we also go into in-depth with this. If you want to read that, it'll be on our website. So without further ado, let's get into it. There are many brands who have become infamous in their histories for the quality of movements that they produce. IWC is one of those brands. As with many watch brands, their success came from building technologies and innovating on watches that would be used as tools. The utility of watches were at the forefront of their minds and naturally led to success then, and infamy now as collectors look back on these watches. So what watch are we looking at today? Today we're looking at this IWC time-only watch. The watch was produced in 1951, just after the conclusion of World War II. This piece of detail will be significant as we continue the story about this piece. Thinking back to this time, watches were not always large, but what you can tell about this piece is it definitely is a little bit larger than your average watch. The watch features a 36 case in 18 karat rose gold with these really interesting long, and I want to get a good shot of this for you, these really interesting long bombé lugs that are often called twisted lugs by collectors today. Not only does this give this watch an incredible look to it, the watch sits extremely large on the wrist. This is easily one of the greatest parts about this watch because it really fits in with modern sizes of watches that one typically sees on the wrist. I think the criticism that vintage watches get often is that they can feel a little bit small in the sea of 39, 40, 41 millimeter watches that a lot of people are wearing today. The case is also a three-part sandwich, which you can see. You can see this sort of upper stepped level, which is where the crystal integrates with the watch. You then have a back piece, which is the caseback, and then sort of that middle section, which gives the watch a couple of layers and is a sort of nice feature to it. The watch has a white creamy dial that's aged very evenly. There's very little uneven patina on the dial of this piece, which is, I think, a very significant part of why this is such a great piece. Being time only, one has to fall in love with the simplicity of this watch, and if you don't like simplistic dials, this probably isn't the best for you. But it has gold applied hour markers with numbers at 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12, and then you have these arrows to indicate the other hour markers. There are beautiful sword hands that allow the time to be told extremely legibly on this sort of oversized cased watch. As you can see, the signature is located just below 12 o'clock and is written in cursive text. One thing that's really subtle about this watch, and I want to try and get a nice image here for you, is the crown. The reason I bring it up is the crown has this grooved finishing to it, which makes it obviously easy to wind, but the way that it's constructed really fits nicely. If you can look at it and then look at this bottom crown here, it really gives it some symmetry with the twisted lugs, and I think that is overall a very attractive part about this specific piece. So one of the things that's really important to do is actually open up the watch and look at the stamps on the case back of these pieces, because they can really tell you quite a lot about a watch and its history. On the case back of this watch, there's beautiful perlage finishing on it, which is really attractive to look at and only would be seen if one opens the watch, and most of the time would be reserved for watchmakers. You also have the IWC Probus Scafusia stamp. Probus Scafusia is the model that IWC and that was established in 1903, and it's a Latin phrase meaning good, solid craftsmanship from Schaffhausen. The watch also has an 18-karat gold stamp, which as well as the Helvetia stamp, which is the Swiss hallmark for 18-karat gold. It also has a hammerhead, or the head of a hammer, stamped onto the case back. There were multiple stamps that were used to indicate the materials and where the materials were sourced of specific watches. This hallmark was used by Swiss watch companies to indicate that the watch case was made of gold, platinum, or palladium in Switzerland, but was from outside of Geneva. If it was made in Geneva, the hallmark would have been a key or a shield. So again, this kind of aligns with the idea that that the piece was obviously made in Schaffhausen. Inside the hammer is the number 109, which indicates that the case was made by Chatelain, Sandoz & Co. Chatelain was founded in 1936 in La Chaux-de-Fonds as a watch case polishing workshop by Miss Blanche Chatelain de Goumois. Because of World War II, the company had to close its doors in 1936, but after the war, they resumed business. They created a separate company called G&F Chatelain SA, who focused on polishing of clasps and focused on polishing of clasps for leather bracelets, so something that you would see at the end of the bracelet. This then extended to polishing gold cases. The case of this watch was likely sort of went through this arm of the business, and this is how incredible, how this sort of case can kind of come to life. The company is actually still around today. They were purchased by Chanel in 1993, who kind of extended their watch manufacturing through this company. Today, G&F Chatelain produce and finish watch cases for Chanel and Bell & Ross, and I think it's very easy to say that Bell & Ross are definitely getting some great use of the company. So with rich design and rich history of the case manufacturer, we should probably shift gears to the movement. The watch is running on the caliber 89 movement. The caliber 89 was first introduced in 1946 and made through 1979. It's a manual wind caliber with hours, minutes, and center seconds. The caliber came from the caliber 83 movement, which was a movement used in military watches in World War II, like the Mark 10, which was issued by the British Ministry of Defense. The caliber 89 was built to replace the caliber 83, but was introduced right as the war was coming to an end, but it was put into the Mark 11s, which was also issued by the British Ministry of Defense. As the war ended, militaries around the world saw a huge decline in issuing watches to their soldiers, and so with that, demand for this caliber 89 sort of diminished. But that didn't really stop IWC. What IWC decided to do was case these movements in precious metal cases. This watch from 1951 being a perfect example of that. The watches came in many different designs, in case metals, in case shapes, in lug design, and dial and hand configuration. And what IWC produced was an incredibly sturdy group of watches that have become loved by collectors. There are some watches that have interesting different cases than this specific model. Lugs are hugely are so diverse. If you look on the market for these specific watches, you'll see that the lugs differ so heavily on these pieces. These obviously have these bombé twisted lugs, but there are some that have these really simplistic sort of classic sharp lugs. There's others that have these sort of squared lugs, which are quite nice. All of them sort of allow for this watch to be such an interesting part of watchmaking history and also design. I'll quickly show you this watch on the wrist. So as you can see, once it focuses, you can see that this watch obviously sits on the larger side, given that it's 36 millimeters with these really long lugs. A beautiful look, I think, and really hugs the wrist because of the sort of sloping nature of these lugs. The best part about watch collecting is when there's a perfect storm of interesting history surrounding the watch. This IWC not only tells a great story about the history of case making and movement production, but it also is an incredibly modern watch in its own right. With a 36mm case, with these extremely long lugs, it'll definitely be a discussion piece for any group you're around when you have this watch on your wrist. I hope you enjoyed hearing about this really beautiful 1951 IWC. I do feel that this is kind of the perfect storm of an incredibly modern looking piece and something that would fit in with a modern crowd given its size, proportions, and overall case design. But then there's the added factor of the idea that it has a very significant movement that's well covered and well respected by a lot of watch collectors. I also think it has an interesting case production history to it, and all of that sort of comes together in a perfect storm of a watch, which is why I absolutely love this piece. It's probably one of my favorites out of the 4 that we've covered over the last couple of weeks, but of course those pieces are equally great in their own right. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, there will be an article, as we always do, about this piece on our website. So if you go to the editorial section of lifeonthewrist.com, you'll be able to read about this piece and see some pictures of it. If you're interested in seeing that, there'll be a link in the description of this video for you to check that out. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about this IWC. Are you an IWC collector, lover? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you have a Caliber 89 in your collection? All things that I would love to know, so leave me a comment down below. As always, if you wouldn't mind doing all the YouTube stuff, liking this video, sharing this with a friend. If you are new to Life on the Wrist, be sure to subscribe and share this with your watch community, because I think we are doing some really interesting things here about vintage watches, and you don't want to miss it. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. As always, there will be links in the description to all of our social media accounts if you want to check any of that out. We've got some cool pictures of this piece on our Instagram, so be sure to, if you want to see some more pictures about that. I think we also uploaded a picture of the Caliber 89 on our Instagram, so it's worth going over and checking it out. With that said, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and until next time.